Glad you're here. I'd like to call to order the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, April 26, 2023. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for everyone attending this evening and watching online. All board members are present. We do have one student board member who was not able to attend this evening. Ms. Farrow is excused. We do have a student disciplinary hearing at 8:45 this evening, so we may need to make adjustments to the agenda as we get closer to that time. First up is community engagement and public comments. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who would like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board?
It's horrible what has happened in the Monroe Schools community. If you don't know Gary, a middle school student, he felt so helpless and unsupported while being bullied that he chose to take his own life. And it's concerning to think how many Milan students are struggling with the same feelings. Seeing what that family's gone through and knowing how you've spent the last 4 months claiming to also be victims of bullying should make you feel embarrassed and ashamed. I'm curious, why do you feel so strongly about your bullying, but you don't share the same concerns for students of this district who actually are bullied? You repeatedly played the victim because of a few mean comments on Facebook and insults and emails from strangers you'll likely never meet. Meanwhile, these children are forced to spend 8 hours a day with their bullies who threaten and embarrass them in person and over social media, and they're expected to just suck it up. You sit there and cry about how hurt you were that people were upset with your behavior. You lie about police reports being filed for what you claim were legitimate threats and use it to shame parents who are speaking out and accuse us of inciting violence. Fake violence that did not occur nor was investigated because they weren't actually credible. You dramatize the situation to the extent of needing a police presence out of fear for your safety. What about the students in Milan who fear for their safety? What about the students who feel unsafe in their class because of bullying that goes unchecked? Why do you deserve such privilege and protection for your fake concerns, but children don't for actual harassment? It's disgusting that you think you have a right to view yourselves as victims of people like me who voice our concerns at meetings, yet you show no concern about the ongoing abuse taking place inside these buildings every single day. I have never encouraged violence towards anyone on the board, but I promise to always bring awareness to your abuse of power and failures to this community. How your neighbors choose to express their disappointment with your behavior and choices they make for themselves, and they are fully responsible for those, not me. There are a lot of parents who have brought concerns up about their kids, and most of you have dismissed them. Because the truth is, you aren't concerned about all kids, which is clear by what you repeatedly choose to focus on. You're just concerned about certain kids, kids that fit into one of your special boxes. How about we protect all students and teach kids to just be decent human beings, and not jerks to one another, regardless of race or gender or whatever other identity you want to single out? How about we encourage kids to stand up for themselves and for one another, and give them the tools to do so effectively, instead of punishing them for speaking out or telling them that they need to run away? All kids deserve to be protected and to feel safe within their school, regardless of the labels you put on them. Does a kid deserve to be threatened and harassed just because he's male or heterosexual or white or Christian? Does that somehow make it better for you? You aren't really deluded enough that you believe white straight kids are never victims of bullying, are you? Because the sad truth is that poor child in Monroe, Gary, would not have been included in your precious marginalized box either, but he deserved better, and so do the kids in Milan.
Thank you for the comment. Are there others?
Hello, Janice Kiger. I would ask the board and the staff and all the parents of our district to please not take to heart some of the comments that were made at the last board meeting. Please do not diminish our students' efforts. Please do not belittle their achievements. Please continue to celebrate their successes, and please continue to encourage them to do their best to become confident learners who aren't afraid to make mistakes and to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Are there others? All right, next up on the agenda is I need a motion to approve the corrected minutes of the regular meeting of April 12th, 2023.
Motion by Rosenleacher.
Support by Murray.
It's been moved and supported to approve the corrected minutes of the regular meeting of April 12th, 2023. Discussion. Just in reviewing the minutes, we're removing the last two board member comments made by Ms. Heike and Ms. Gutierrez to after the motion for the student discipline at the end. So those two comments will be moved in between the motion for student discipline and the time of adjournment because we interrupted board member comments in order to go into closed session. And those minutes are in front of us to look at with those struck through and highlighted. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Murray.
I just noticed this as I was looking through it again, somehow in print versus on screen is different. But time return to open session is 12:43 p.m. and adjournment 12:52 p.m. That should be a.m.
Thank you. So we will correct. Time return to open session is 12:43 a.m. and time of adjournment is 12:52 a.m. Any other comments or corrections? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the corrected minutes of the regular meeting of April 12th, 2023. Ms. Heike.
Can I ask a quick question? Do we need a new motion to approve the new minutes
I-
as amended? I think we do.
Yeah.
They're still
We
being
do.
corrected. I think we could consider that another correction.
So do we need to table them?
No.
No,
we're
we
allowed
don't need to
correct
table
them
them,
at
but
this
I think we
meeting
need
and
a
then
new
approve them.
motion
As amended.
as amended, because there's a second amendment.
Correct.
Okay, so as corrected and amended if someone wants to make that.
Yes.
Moved by Rosenleacher.
There we go.
Support by Murray.
All right, it's been moved and supported to the corrected and amended minutes of the regular meeting of April 12th, 2023. Ms. Heike.
Gutierrez? Heike? Yes. Murray?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of April 12th, 2023.
Support by Farrow.
Moved by Farrow.
I'm sorry, moved by Farrow, sorry. Long day.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of April 12, 2023. These are found in the folder. We can pass those in if you're... It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of April 12, 2023. Ms. Heike.
Heike, yes. Beret?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo? Pharaoh?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 School of Choice Resolution as provided in Attachment A.
Moved by Murray.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 School of Choice Resolution as provided in Attachment A. Mr. Gearbaugh.
This resolution is an annual resolution that we have to make so that we are allowed to accept and count schools of choice, both from within Washtenaw County and from within counties contiguous to Washtenaw County. It's a similar resolution that's passed every year.
Any questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2024 School of Choice Resolution as provided in Attachment A. Ms. Heike.
Murray?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo? Pharaoh?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Heike, yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 Budget and Truth and Taxation Hearing Announcement as provided in Attachment.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Heike.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 Budget and Truth and Taxation Hearing as announcement. The Truth and Taxation Hearing announcement provided in Attachment. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Again, this is an annual resolution that you have to pass. This allows us to then publish this in the newspaper as is required by law. You'll notice that the hearing is scheduled for 15 minutes prior to our June 7th meeting. Prior to that, once they are completed, we will make the budget available to anyone in the community that asks for it. And that is also the time where you will set tax rate only on the debt funds. And we just about have all of the information we need from the counties, and then we will be sending that off to our bond finance partner, who will determine whether we need to maintain the same millage rate or whether we can decrease that millage rate based on current tax collection.
Again, this is just to make the announcement for that meeting. Any questions or concerns?
Just, Mr. Sislo,
Yes, Mr. Farrow.
just a quick comment for the public's knowledge. The current mill debt is 9.75. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 Budget and Truth and Taxation Hearing Announcement as provided in Attachment B. Ms. Heike.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Pharaoh?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the Milan Area Schools 2023-2024 course offerings as detailed in Attachment C.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved to the Milan Area Schools 2023-2024 course offerings as detailed in Attachment C. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Yes, this is a document that was created in conjunction with the WISD pupil accounting auditor. This is something that we have to have in place as part of the paperwork we turn in during pupil counting week. Basically, you are approving us to teach these courses and count students for them in our pupil count. We are allowed to say, as documented in the annual course catalog, please understand that that does not mean that every course offered will be offered, but that we are allowed to offer all those, hold them if we get the correct number of students requesting to take them.
Any questions or comments?
I have a quick question, Mr. Gerbaugh. Under the elementary listing, under electives, I noticed we didn't list library, which I believe is at least at Paddock, right, is a current elective?
That is correct. We will not have that special next year. There won't be a need for it with the number of sections that we have.
Should we think that's an important elective to offer in the future? Does this tie our hands in the future to have that discussion?
Have library time. They'll still go to the library, they'll just go with their teacher. They won't have a separate teacher teaching it. This year was the first year we put that in place just because we needed an additional special to be able to provide release time for teachers to get their conference period. We won't need to do that next year. So the students will still go to the library. There's still a parapro librarian there. Their teacher will be with them and they'll still be able to check out books every week.
I understand that, but my question is, if we approve this way, does this tie our hands? Should we decide to offer library as an individual special?
Yes, we would have to come back and approve this again before count day.
Which is in October, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yes.
Unless I'm missing it, which could also, the consortium, is that not? I know it's called Celine, but I'm not, is that just falling under other?
That's
Okay, so-
actually, those courses are actually listed in our annual course catalog.
So they're just
So those
covered
are
under
within
the?
high school course catalog.
The course catalog,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yep.
Any other comments? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the Milan Area Schools 2023-24 course offerings. Attachment C. Ms. Heike.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next up on to board organization. I need a motion to approve the resolution to consider designation of electoral representative for the June WISD biennial election as outlined in attachment D.
Moved by Gutierrez.
Support by Pharaoh.
It's been moved and supported to approve the resolution to consider designation of electoral representative for the June 5th, 2023 WISD biennial election as outlined in attachment D. So this, just as a discussion, determine who is potentially available that day and an alternate on June 5th to vote for us in the WISD election. So we're not determining who we're voting for at this time, and we're not nominating anybody, but it would be good to know who is available to be our representative and an alternate for that WISD biennial election on June 5th, 2023. Is it available?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes.
Can you clarify where this meeting would happen?
It would be at the WISD on Wagner Road.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, is it at 7 o'clock? More than likely 7 o'clock.
No yet, but I wouldn't doubt that the question of it having being a Zoom might come up as well. So I'm not going to say for sure, but it's been known to swap around. I'm going to assume as being part of the exec board, I'll probably be there. So if I can be thrown down as an alternative, whatever, just to throw it out there, because I'll probably already be there. And I'm still the rep thing. So
Okay.
just to throw a name out there, Mr. Sislo.
I'll be happy.
Just a couple of pieces of information. The election is at 6 p.m.
Okay.
And as far as I understand this year, the people voting will have to be in person. I think other people can Zoom in, but the actual people voting have to be in person.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes.
I would be willing to either attend as the voting member or serve as an alternate also
Okay.
that day.
Okay.
I can work it out.
Cool. Well, I think we can make that, we have people available, so keep your availability I'll also keep my availability, so we have Ms. Freight, Ms. Murray, and myself at 3 that we can nominate when we consider this.
You do need to, in this resolution,
I'm sorry.
list
You
the
have
two.
to
They can change at the next
I'm sorry.
meeting, but you
Okay,
do need
gotcha.
to list the two.
So we'll do Ms. Freight and Ms. Murray. Is that?
Fine.
All right.
Yep.
I apologize.
No, you're okay.
Any other questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the resolution to consider designation of electoral representative for the June 5th, 2023 WISD biennial election as outlined in attachment D, which would be Ms. Freight and Ms. Murray. Ms. Ika.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Leacher,
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next up in the area of finance and operations, we're going to have a first reading of the 2023-2024 WISD budget resolution as in attachments E1, E2, E3, and E4. The WISD did have a Zoom presentation in regards to this. Ms. Freight attended, Ms. Rosen-Leacher attended. We appreciate that. If Mr. Gearbaugh can add any other detail in regards to that. This is a first reading, so if we do have questions, we can bring it back. It is a requirement that we vote on this prior to June 1st, and that's what we will do at our meeting in May. We'll vote on this.
Just to walk through the attachments. So E1 is the resolution that you will vote on in the May meeting. You have two options there, to either support the budget or to disapprove of the budget. Whether you disapprove or support, you can also send comments to the WISD board. The board, if they receive any comments, have to consider them to approve their budget. They may make changes, they may not make changes, but they do have to consider any comments sent to them. Attachment E2 is the general appropriations, so it's their resolution for general education. And E3 is budget education. And then E4 is a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that was given by the WISD. I'm not going to walk through that. It's a pretty lengthy document for those that have been on the board before. It's a very similar PowerPoint as to past years. I will answer any questions on it now, or if you have any questions between now and our May meeting, you can most definitely get those to me, and I can either answer them or get a hold of Brian Marcel at the WISD, and he can answer.
Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yes.
I'm curious because this was a new view lens for me, I guess. But in the presentation, Mr. Marcel spoke of a CTE director, and I'm wondering what that relationship is or impact with our consortium program.
Very good question. So if you're looking at the slides, there's a slide labeled General Fund Expenditure Changes. It's probably about halfway in the presentation. And it says, based on recommendation from the Superintendent Association, a countywide CTE director position was added. Just a little detail behind this. As a group of superintendents, we are very interested in expanding our career tech education offerings in the county. We want to work on making sure that students from all of the districts have equal opportunity to those options. There are pretty vast differences between schools that are in the Southwest Washtenaw Consortium, that are in some standalone districts, or that even some of them get services from outside of the county because of their location within Washtenaw County. We really want to expand our offerings and look at options of how, as a county, so not the consortium that we are part of, but as a county, work on building and increase offerings that we have for career tech ed. We didn't feel that we could do that appropriately unless we had someone leading that charge for the entire county. So the superintendents came together and we agreed that our student population and our CTE, we were willing to contribute funds towards covering the salary of a countywide director that next year to lead that process and move us forward with improving career tech ed throughout the county.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Gearbaugh, read the slides correctly that the staff will get the step increase and a 2%.
That's what's in their current contract for next year, yes.
Okay. And can you remind me what percent increase our?
2%.
Okay.
And our guaranteed stages along the way as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sisla?
Yeah, Ms. Murray.
I just wanted to make a note for the board that I'll be abstaining from the voting on the WISD budget matters because they are my employer. So,
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So again, this is a first reading. Feel free, again, as Mr. Gearboss said, to go through it, get questions back to him, that he get back to Mr. Marcel for the May meeting. Next up, I need a motion to approve the My Future Fund memorandum as included in attachment 1. Further, to authorize the President, Superintendent, or designee to sign all necessary documents regarding the My Future Fund initiative.
Motion by Rosenleacher.
Support by Farrow.
So moved and supported to approve the My Future Fund memorandum as included in attachment F1. Further, to authorize the Board President, Superintendent, or designee to sign all necessary documents regarding the My Future Fund initiative. We do have Miss Sarah Snyder here, and I'm sorry, and Sharnissa Williams. The board's going to step out into the audience while you guys give us the presentation.
Just needed. Go. All right. Well, good evening, trustees, members of the public. My name is Sarah Taylor. I'm the Children's Savings Account Coordinator for the Washtenaw Intermediate School District. And I'm joined by my colleague, Sharnissa Williams, from the Office of Community and Economic Development with Washtenaw County Government. And tonight, I'm excited to share with you about My Future Fund, a new program that Washtenaw ISD is launching in collaboration with Washtenaw County. My Future Fund is a program that will give students in Washtenaw County Public Schools, including Milan schools, and participating charter schools a jump start on saving and planning for future college or career training. This program is structured as a children's savings account program, a research-based approach that helps students and families build assets for future post-secondary educational expenses. Washtenaw Intermediate School District operates this program with initial funding from a generous investment by Washtenaw County government of $2.9 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds and $3.78 million of county general funds. The Board of Commissioners has provided funding for the next 4 years as part of their commitment to equity. In addition to the work of the W County, we are supported by a community advisory committee that is made up of stakeholders from across the county that includes school personnel, parents, nonprofits, workforce development, and financial institutions, as well as philanthropy. And they've been really important in come up with a lot of giving us the recommendations for the pieces of this program. The goals of our program, our ambitious goals, are to provide equitable opportunities to local students and families. These goals are backed by the research about children's savings account programs, and we are working towards increasing college expectations, increasing the number of students completing post-secondary programming, bringing parents into the financial mainstream, and address educational disparities that were really exacerbated by the pandemic by increasing resources to students in high poverty districts. There are several elements of the My Future Fund program. And in this program, we will provide both a jump start for families as they save for future college and career training expenses, as well as providing the financial education so that they can begin to take those small steps towards their goals. As a mom of a 15-year-old, it's amazing how fast that happens, and then we're suddenly looking towards college already. So to start having those conversations early with families and young people to really help them start thinking about those. So the first element of the My Future Fund program is the My Future Fund account. All eligible elementary students will automatically receive a free My Future Fund account with a $25 starting deposit. These funds are pooled together and held on behalf of by the Michigan Education Savings Program and managed by TIAA-CREF tuition financing. So because of the way this account is structured, families can't add directly to the savings. All right, that felt a little bit like the pit car driver race. Thank you for fixing that for me. So like I was sharing, the funds are in a pooled account and then are allocated, the shares of that account will be allocated to the students through the My Future Fund family portal. We'll be able to add the funds to this pooled account so that students will have access to those dollars for qualified expenses for college and career training. In addition, we hope to raise additional funds to add to these accounts over time. So that's the first element. The second piece of the program is an additional $495 for students who are free and reduced lunch eligible. So these dollars are based on families' household income, and we will be using the supplemental nutrition eligibility status to determine the students who receive that additional amount. Because of the way that the free and reduced lunch confidentiality is set up, we do have to get families' permission to check if they are eligible for this additional. So once we're able to check and see that they qualify for that, then that additional $470 will also be deposited into their My Future Fund account. And those dollars are for a one-time window between now and the 2025-2026 school year. And then the final piece is ongoing support around financial education. We're collaborating with the Michigan Education Savings Program to provide resources for families of starting their own MESP, or what a lot of people call 29 plan account, and families will be able to connect those accounts in their portal so that they can see, oh, here's my future fund amount, and then here's my own 529 account, and this is how much we've saved cumulatively for our students. We also are planning to host workshops and events in schools as well as community spaces to begin to have these conversations and provide additional tools for families. And we also are looking to collaborate with schools and districts like yours on financial literacy and career development instruction. We know that that is, those are pieces that you're embedding already into your teaching and your curriculum, and so we want to find ways to collaborate around that as well. I want to touch just a few more points on the My account, because I think this one is sort of the really specific, it's for specific individuals, and so I want to just be clear on how that's going to work. So elementary students who are enrolled in a Washtenaw County public school district or a participating public school academy will automatically receive an account. We are using directory information to populate that account, and so any student who is opted out of having their directory information would not get an account automatically, and families also would have the option to opt out of having an account through the My Future. Tentatively, all students in 1st and 5th grade who are enrolled in area schools will receive their free account this year, and that includes students that live outside of the county. It's students that are enrolled in Washtenaw schools that are within the WISD service area who receive an account. So I know that might be a question, knowing that many of your students come from outside of Washtenaw County into the school. They also will receive an account. We're going to use October enrollment data from the Michigan Student Data System to register students for the program. So if a student arrived in your school in January, then they will be rolled in next year when we enroll the next group of students. So they'll just be a year, they'll come in next year because we're using information to populate the accounts. And like I shared, families will have that opportunity to opt out if they do not want to participate. Oh no. So here for people that are more visual, there's a visual representation of the enrollment of students, with the goal of by the end of the 25-26 school year, all students 1st through 8th grade will have a My Future Fund account. In the MOU that you were provided this evening, our hope is that we know that schools are going to be such an important partner in this work. And so our MOU outlines the roles and responsibilities both of the My Future Fund program as well as Milan area schools. Our work is to provide all of the logistics, the communications, the operations, how do these get assigned to the students, creating the tools for schools to be able to send home the communication things we're working on. What we're looking for you to help us with is to approve that we can use that directory information to populate the student accounts, to assist with outreach support, so getting the flyers into backpacks, putting information into newsletters and your other communication channels. When you're having fun, exciting events in your buildings, we would love to come and have a table and talk to families about the work that we're doing. And so over the next 4 years, we estimate that over $230,000 will be allocated to over 1,000 students for their future college and career training. We have a pretty ambitious timeline, but we really want to make sure that this first cohort of kids can get their accounts this summer so that those dollars can start to be saved by the kids and be able to, they can go in there and see what they've got for their college and career savings. We're working to finalize all the program components now. In May is when we will first introduce this program to families and students through some communication, letting people know that it's coming, giving them the opportunity to opt out if they do not wish to have an account, as well as to get families to consent to that additional deposit. Then we'll use that information to then launch the accounts will be activated this summer, and families will get information about how to log in and see their information about their individual savings. And then we really are looking, we know there's lots of exciting things that happen in the fall, and so want to explore opportunities to collaborate around how we get the word out with to families about this program. And then in winter of 2024, we have to start with the next group of kids. So we're really wanting to embed this into your practices in your school district to best fit the needs and the ways in which your students and families can get information. I know that there are probably a lot of questions that you might have about this, and I'm happy if this is an appropriate time to entertain those questions, or if you need to come back up to your seats, however that works. I want to pause and give space for that, but really appreciate that you have given me the chance to share about this tonight. Okay.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Questions for Ms. Saylor? So it operates to a 529, is that the understanding?
Correct.
Okay.
And the money is, the funds that will be allocated for students are held in the same type of a account that an individual 529 plan would be held in, bigger pooled account, but managed in a similar way.
And then when you talk about career training, give me some examples of career training that would be eligible.
Yeah, so two-year community college would be eligible if somebody's doing an apprenticeship, all the programs do need to fall within certain guidelines around, post-secondary programs. But for an apprenticeship, if somebody needed certain tools or equipment, the money can be used for technology. You need a computer in order to access your schoolwork. So there's quite a range of the types of costs that could be covered by those dollars.
And then what happens if a family moves out of state to a different school? What happens with their account?
So their account, they would still be able to keep their account with the dollars that had been deposited prior to their departure. And we would just ask that they need to keep in touch, keep their information updated. If they leave in second grade and we haven't been in touch with them for 10 years, it's going to be really hard for us to be able to get them the money for their post-secondary education. So there will be some requirements around you have to keep your information updated, and if we can't reach you certain time, then you'll forfeit your dollars. But if somebody leaves, they would still be able to use what they earned during their time in a participating school. They just wouldn't be able to get additional bonuses or incentives that we're hoping to be able to add to students' accounts down the road.
Gotcha, thank you.
Ms. Saylor, has TIAA Craft provided any sort of long-term projections about what kind of impact that initial $25 deposit will have over, the length of time that it's held, before the student graduates?
So I think in terms of how much that will gain over the course of time, it's hard to predict with the market. And I think the part that I want to underscore is that it is both, yes, there is that $25, but also that the research behind these children's savings accounts show that even a small amount of money that is set aside for post-secondary education increases the likelihood that students enroll and persist through college. So there is this element of planting that seed that gets you excited and starting to think about it, accompanied with then those other tools for families of how are they doing that savings on their own. We're jump starting this for families and then helping to provide those resources along the way. And I think the third piece is that really we're hoping that we're able to raise additional funds so that we're adding to these accounts over time for students.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, thank you.
Ms. Saylor, could you talk a little bit about the plan for families who may have opted out of student directory information?
So families who've opted out of the student directory information will be able to contact our program and give us permission to then add them in to the accounts. But the best practices around children's savings account programs have shown that if you automatically enroll everybody, the rate of participation is so much higher than if you ask people to opt in. And so doing that in reverse, we want to still make sure that families who've opted out of directory information, they are eligible they will just have to take that additional step to confirm that they are who, that we can verify their information, and then we're able to set up their account.
Thank you.
Ms. Taylor, as a follow-up to that question, could you speak a little bit about the scope of the information that will be shared, with whom? Certainly TIAA Craft, but does it go beyond that? Are there other partners?
So the information will be, UISD has that information, and then we have a third-party vendor that hosts the portal that will be for the student accounts. And so the information will also be in that portal, and it is really just that limited directory information, and then families will have the option to keep their information up to date, but then they're putting that information in on their own.
Could you tell me what is considered a public school academy?
Those are charter schools.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then I'm going to admit I'm not very familiar with this data issue. So as a parent, have I had an opportunity to give the school district permission to share my kids' data?
You don't give permission to share the data, you opt out of having that information shared.
Okay.
And the directory information is really like name, address, phone number. That's the majority of the information that's shared. It's really very basic directory information.
And I assume this is part of like our annual registration process?
Yes, in the registration process, the parents have the choice to opt out of having that, even that information shared. Can't opt out of having that shared with is the military.
Oh, okay, okay. And then do you have any estimates of how much the fees that will be collected by TIA CREF will be? I assume they're not doing this for free.
They will be taking a percentage off that larger amount for some of those. Yes, there are some fees. I could find out more specifically on the exact dollar amount for you, but I don't have that information.
Okay, I'd like to know what the percentage is. And then I just want to make sure I understand, so if to all districts within the WISD and the public school academies, so if, let's just by example, Milan doesn't approve, then since the pool of individuals eligible shrinks, does the amount of money allocated shrink, or does the amount that gets allocated to each individual student increase? What do we do then if there are districts that opt to not participate?
So I think that would be a question we would bring to our community advisory board, or community advisory committee, sorry, and have that conversation, that really the Board of Commissioners allocated those dollars as if all of those folks were going to participate. And so I think we would have to have additional conversation about what does that mean if not everybody participates in the fund, if the county would, either say, well, this is what we've allocated per student, if that's different than our fund. So I think that would be a conversation that we would have once we've seen everyone who's opting to participate.
And then what are the plans for any funds that are not claimed? Because I assume there'll be a certain percentage of students that either don't need it or, quite frankly, forget that it's there. What happens with all those funds?
So those funds would roll back into the pooled account to then be reallocated to either current students or future students that are participating in the program.
So I think this is a lot of idea. I really do. I just am really grappling with the fact that we don't know what the fees off the initial amount will be. That's a little concerning to me because sometimes those fees can be quite large. And I will just be honest, I'm really struggling with the idea that if we had $6 million, what could we do with the $6 million in terms of literacy and math and things like that. So these are the things that I'm struggling with tonight. I think I understand the point, I do, and I think it's very laudable. If I had $6 million to teach kids how to read.
Other questions or concerns from Ms. Moore?
Yes, I have a follow-up to Ms. In terms of if students don't use the money, how long do they have to use it?
So our advisory committee has recommended that they have until age 26,
Okay.
up until their 26th birthday, I should say. So through the end of being 25, they would have to use those funds.
Question is, the amount that's allocated for the next 4 years, does that spend out the total of the $6 million? So is there a longevity projection to the program?
So those funds, the projection is based on some, I mean, there's a lot of estimates in even how much per year, depends on enrollment of, of each building, how many students opt out, all of those pieces. Part of my charge is the sustainability of the for those 4. And so being able to continue to fund through fundraising and through other partnerships, keep funds going to then provide that support for future students.
But as of now, do the projections that has been committed fulfill the next 4 years and
Yes.
nothing beyond that?
That's correct.
And this money's already been allocated by the
Already been
WISD and the county?
The county has allocated the money already, yes.
Okay. And what about the WISD?
So the WISD, we will, in our contract with the county, when it is time to allocate the funds to the students, the county will provide us those dollars to then put into the account.
So is any money coming from the WISD, or is it all coming from the county?
No. So the money for the program is coming from the county. The WISD has some in-kind funds as well that are providing some of the administrative support to the program. But in terms of the dollars for the accounts, for this first allocation, the money is coming from the county through the WISD and then into the student account.
Okay. Do we have an estimate on what the county WISD costs will be then?
From,
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. So my understanding is the money's being allocated by the county, but then the WISD will incur some costs in terms of administrating. Is that
right,
what
so
you said?
Yes.
No, that's okay. And so do we have an estimate of what those costs are?
Yeah, so that part of the budget is that the county is providing is the administrative cost as well. So the county has allocated funds for the administrative costs. The WISD has put in some in-kind dollars. And then the county also has the My Future Fund account dollars in there as well.
Okay. So as part of this agreement, there will be no funds that will be expected from our district to participate?
That's correct.
Okay.
I want to be clear, there are some around helping us distribute information to families through your district, but that if we have something to distribute, we're going to provide those materials to you to hand out to students.
Okay.
Ms. Saylor, if I may, to back up, I think what Mrs. Heike was getting at, so the expectation for the WISD funding is also very minimal. It's all county funding in essence.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Gerb, I have a question for you. If we decide to participate, would it be administratively difficult for us to, I guess the piece I'm struggling with is, as a parent, I fill out those enrollment forms every year, and I guess I never realized that I was not opting out of sharing my kids' data, and I gotta assume that other parents are in that boat. And so I'm just kind of wondering if before we share this data, understanding that there's sensitivity around it, if there's some communication that we can send out to parents, letting them know this is happening, and then giving them an opportunity to opt out. Does that, I don't want to create work for everyone, but I also want to be very transparent with parents about what's going to be shared.
So the first piece is we don't share our student information with anyone. The only people who our information is shared with are, obviously, when we're doing state testing, we have to share certain information.
Sure.
A couple of the software pieces that we use, we have to share information to be able to get the kids into, like our math curriculum.
Sure.
Outside of that, we don't share information with anyone.
Thank you for that clarification,
So there
because it
shouldn't
was
be a
nothing, it was
concern.
something I'd never really
No,
thought of.
there should
so,
not be a
okay.
concern. selling your addresses. We're not giving them to anyone. We are even to the point, like, if our yearbook company wants to send a flyer out to families, they bring us the flyers and we put the address labels on them and mail them out. We won't even give them the list. We're very protective of people's information. So this would be one of the few people that we would share it with. And remember, the parents are going to have a chance to opt out of this, and that's going to be heavily advertised. So even if they're still in their students' information being shared, they will have the ability to opt out of this specifically.
That I understand, but I'm wondering if we can give them the opportunity through some early communication, maybe even just through like a Honeywell push.
Yes.
That they can then opt out of the information being shared initially.
Yeah, that's how we'll be distributing all the information pretty much, is through our instant messaging system. So they'll provide us, the organization will provide us, hey, please send this out to your families. That's going to say, click here to opt out and do this. So that's all going to be very evident when the information push starts to even originate this.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been working on an opt-out form that is very clear about here's what you're opting out of, and giving families the opportunity. And if at any time a family wants to opt out, they could contact us and say, you know, we don't want to participate now. So there's both the opportunity to opt out from having your information ever put into the account, and we will have an ongoing opportunity for families to opt out at any along the way. But then they would also, at that point, they would not be able to keep their whatever deposits have been made for their student's account or earn additional deposits in the future.
Okay.
Just a quick personal comment on the fees, like I know you asked. So this money will be basically invested in the same way that all of the MESP are. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, I used those for both of our boys, and they actually performed very, very well. And the fees were not, compared to any investments, the fees were normal to below normal.
Thank you for that.
I don't have specifics, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I can tell you the exact amounts. But I can tell you that the investments we started for our boys when they were very young and saved all the way through until they went to school. And these funds actually perform very well.
Okay.
I would concur with that, Mr. Gerba. Similar personal experience. Our daughter's
As would
has exceeded any fees beyond. So, yeah.
The fees are fairly
I feel good
nominal
about it.
for what you return.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you for presenting this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it's been moved and supported to approve the My Future memorandum as included in attachment F1, and further to authorize the board president, superintendent to assign all the necessary documents regarding the My Future Fund initiative. Ms. Heike.
Mr. Avery has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
apologize.
This is not
Or a
related
comment.
to this, but can I just be excused for a few minutes, please?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yes. Thanks for asking. Careful.
Don't hurt yourself again.
All right. So the motion's been moved and supported. Ms. Heike.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Great. Thank you. You ladies are excused if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next up in the area of academics and programs, I need a motion to approve the FCI graduates as listed in attachment G, contingent upon their completion of all graduation requirements.
So
by-
moved.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Heike. So moved by Freight.
Support by Heike.
It's been moved and supported to approve the FCI graduates as listed in attachment G, contingent upon their completion of all graduation requirements. Mr. Gearbaugh.
I do just want to note, as you know, we approved the community education graduates at the last meeting. These are the FCI gentlemen that will be graduating, hopefully, if they meet the requirements. And as I informed you today, I did receive word that we do have one additional student. His name was added, and I did put that new list in your board pack. Actually, that student just came back to our FCI facility. And he had been in it before, and he only needs a half a credit, and so we're very excited to be able to get him back in the program and hopefully get him a diploma at the end of the year.
Other questions or comments? So there's 12 gentlemen on this list. This graduation ceremony it's a special ceremony. We're the only high school within a federal correctional institute in America. Ms. Freight's been to this graduation. I've been a few times. They do value getting that diploma. Their family is there to see them receive their diploma. So it's quite remarkable. So look forward to that graduation when it comes. Any other questions, Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just to add, a lot of these students also then continue because the FCI has an agreement with, I believe it's Jackson Community College, and they move on and begin their community college work while still incarcerated. So this opens doors to them to take the next step. And while we can't get data out of the FCI just because of all the requirements, we do have anecdotal data that shows that this is one of the programs that minimizes recidivism almost the best out of any of the programs they offer. So if the students go through and get our high school diploma, their potential of returning back to prison is very, very low. So this is a wonderful program that we're able to offer. I do want to make it clear to the community, we offer this program through grants. No K-12 Milan area schools dollars are spent on this program.
I'll just reiterate Mr. Sislow's comments. This is a phenomenal ceremony to go to. I mean, not only do the graduates thank you for the opportunity for the education, but their family members, their children. It's an incredible experience to go through and be there and just celebrate and be able to offer or to afford all of this for them. So I'm really excited that we have as many gentlemen to celebrate.
Other questions or comments? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the FCI graduates as listed in attachment G, contingent upon their completion of all graduation requirements. Ms. Heike.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Welcome back, Ms. Powell. Next up on the agenda is we have the WISD PAC update from Ms. Andrea Bennick. She informed us that she has a family commitment this evening, so we will look forward to her update at the May meeting. Next up is the book study of Why Meadow Died. So again, the board was asked to do this book as a book study. This is in regards to the school shooting that took place on February 14th, 2018, where there was a former student that opened fire on students and staff in the Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High School in the suburban town of Parkland, Florida, and murdered 17 people and injuring 17 others. And Meadow was was the daughter of the gentleman that wrote the book. Meadow was killed as part of the shooting. So at this point, we're going to be reviewing chapters 9 and 10. We're halfway through the book, and this section started with 42 what-if questions that may have caused the killings not to have happened. So some of those questions are pretty provoking, thought-provoking, as far as some of the things that could have intervened to stop this early on, or even on the day of the event, to stop the shooting. Chapter 9 really focused on Broward County's policies, and mainly again on this promise program that we've talked about. And this promise program allowed students who committed certain misdemeanors to go to an alternate school instead of being arrested. I talked about where the teachers felt pressure from the administration, and the administration felt pressure from the elected officials to reduce suspensions. And then they talked a lot about this discipline matrix that was used to discipline students when they were sent to the office for misbehaving. They talked about how it became more lenient, and the fact that some of the things that started off as out-of-school suspensions became in-school suspensions. Then we got into some of the serious offenses and crimes, specifically around the Promise Collaborative Agreement. So specifically, this agreement was between the superintendent, the sheriff, the state attorney, and the public defender. And just a reminder, as Ms. Murray has told us about, this is a large metropolitan school area in Florida in size. So this was a list of 10 nonviolent misdemeanors like theft, alcohol, drug, threats, and vandalism. There's one violent misdemeanor of fighting, and 2 non-criminal conduct offenses such as disruption or disorderly conduct were part of this, this promised collaborative agreement. And the idea was that the students could commit up to 4 of these misdemeanors before possible referral to law enforcement. Then at the end of that chapter, there was a lot of talk of these policies going national after a letter that was put out by the Department of Education and the Department of Justice to implement similar policies as Broward in order to reduce racial bias in discipline. And because it was deemed a success by some, it was signed again after 3 years in October of 2016 with much fanfare, and the superintendent was celebrated. So that was Chapter 9 in regards to the Promise program. Chapter 10 focused a lot on underreporting and how that played a role in the shooting. There's a lot of stories in regards to the underreporting of disruptive and criminal behavior. There was incidents described with the sheriff's son, where he held a student down while another student sexually assaulted this student being held down. The offending students received a 3-day out-of-school suspension, and there's no law enforcement action in regards to that. There's quite a few discrepancies between what the school resource officer had as reports and what was being reported to the state. One thing of note was that student and staff surveys were discontinued, being published the year that this Promise program was launched. They touched on this theory called Campbell's Law, where the more any quantitative social indicator is used for social decision making, the more the subject is to be subject to corruption pressures, and more apt it will be distorted in order to corrupt the social processes it's intended to monitor. So basically, it's saying it will make things worse because of the way it's measured. They talked about several incidents where the school resources officers were instructed not to arrest students on the school campus. There's quite a section on the Broward Teachers Union president about underreporting, and she believed that it was a huge problem. One of the major problems that she said was that the paperwork for that was burdensome. And then one of the fathers of one of the students that was killed solicited anonymous teacher comments, and most of those comments were around the leniency of that discipline matrix that was talked about earlier. So that's a summary of what was in those 2 chapters. Other comments regards to those chapters?
Mr. Sislo,
Yeah,
I
Ms.
think, you know, we've said this a number of times going through this, and these chapters kind of rehash some of the things that happened, but I'm happy to see, and I just pulled up the slide from the ISD budget in terms of their support for our work here in our county around school safety. And it reminds me, we haven't participated in, nor have I, as a longtime educator in this state and particularly in this county, we've never spoken of the Promise program or any of that. So I feel confident that we've avoided that, yet we continue to work collaboratively. And when I look at this ISD budget and that they're continuing to help connect and coordinate our superintendents with our police chiefs from around the county, as well as the county sheriff's department and others, helping to support our emergency operating plans, continuing to work on how do we make sure that the students are meeting the requirements of of the law, I guess is the best way. We've never, and I asked Mr. Gearbaugh this, we have never, nor would we if we had a child who commits a felony, interfere with law enforcement's role with that. So, again, terribly disturbing, all of the things that did go wrong and all of those points of what if. You never want to see something like that happen, ever.
To support that, some of the work that the superintendents have been doing with all of the police agencies in the county, we're more leaning on and providing training to all of our counselors, social workers, and administrators on how to actually see a threat, evaluate that threat, and make sure that we are addressing that threat even before anything's happened. So if we start to feel uneasy about a student, their behavior, their patterns, our law enforcement actually gets involved earlier because of some of the work that we do. In no way are we doing anything to attempt to hide it from numbers. We've actually experienced the exact opposite with our involvement with our police agencies in the county.
And Mr. Gearbaugh, correct me if I'm wrong, but in our recent issues with our lockdowns, the police are involved, and in fact, I think you shared it with the community, the letter that the Monroe County prosecutor issued indicating that he will treat these threats very seriously.
Correct.
Okay.
And we actually, at our last joint meeting with the chiefs, we actually had a gentleman from the Washtenaw prosecutor's office come and talk about the exact process and how we've been involved in that and how we help with that and how our CSTAG threat assessments actually go to the prosecutor and they use those because they understand that training. So yeah, I mean, our last meeting, we had a 45-minute presentation from the Washtenaw County prosecutor's office on how to get them involved through our police agencies when we do have any type of threats made at school.
And I guess I'll just ask you, have you ever had any conversations with the police chief here in Milan that, from your perspective, would give him an idea that you believe he has no jurisdiction here if
Absolutely.
a crime has been committed?
Absolutely not. We've actually given them jurisdiction. For those that don't know, this was years ago. They have jurisdiction even to patrol our parking lots and enforce all driving infractions on our driveways, parking lots. So they have full jurisdiction on school property.
Thank you.
Mr. Sislo?
Yeah, Ms. Gutierrez.
This chapter was very interesting to me because I think that, like the rest of the book, the author is making a very strong statement about one perspective of looking at these systemic issues in our country. And Chapter 9 is no exception. It offers a strong critique of the Promise program, particularly in regards to the program's efforts to address inequities across students. And the author writes, rather than accept that differences in disciplinary rates reflect broader inequities in American society, we have blamed teachers. And so I find even this paradigm a bit disconcerting. On both sides of this conversation, if you flip on any news channel in the country, we see that there is a propensity to fully ascribe to one or another side of reasoning and rationale. It's either completely this or it's completely that. And the reality is that it's truly neither of those completely. It's this and that and somewhere in between. And as I was reading this and reflecting on this and just listening to this conversation here and what I've learned in the last few weeks on the board, I'm really grateful that what I see happening here in our district is this deep and careful consideration of this nuance. Our commitment to educating and training our youngest citizens. I talked about it in my candidate interview about I believe that our role of an educational institution is to raise a diverse and democratic society. But we also, as the keepers of our children, the majority of the day have a responsibility to keep them safe and keep our staff safe. And I'm grateful to the conversations that we've had here, what I have learned over the last many weeks, about the commitment and the creativity this district has exemplified in terms of walking that line between this, that, and everything in between. So, and we don't have all the answers, we don't have all the solutions. I think we have humility about that, but I'm grateful for the consideration we have been giving these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Others?
Go ahead. Okay. Mr. Sislo?
Yeah, Ms. Murray.
I guess I could frame this kind of as an extension or a addition to Ms. Gutierrez's comments, but I agree that a lot of times I feel that this book is trying to paint an all or nothing, black or white, kind of dichotomy, and pin this horrific tragedy, on the lapels of particular policies or groups of people. And I absolutely agree, as I've read through this book, that there are things that I feel were glaring failures of systems and people. That certainly exists. But I also feel that the author has done a particularly poor job of characterizing and explaining some of the things that we do in schools. And he's coming from a non-educator background, a non-administrator background, and my concern as I've been reading this is that this may be the only perspective that a reader of this book gets if they don't take it upon themselves to look at, I'm speaking specifically right now about the multi-tiered systems of support. The author talks about the frameworks that schools use to respond to student problem behavior within the classroom or within the school setting. And I just don't think that he does a very good job of characterizing how that's applied in schools. And it's yet another example of how he's attempting to black or white the issue, or one or the other, and kind of suck that MTSS or multi-tiered systems of support into something that we must lay this tragedy at the feet of. And I disagree with that characterization emphatically. He says, and he notes himself, like, it's for low-level misbehavior. So schools use multi-tiered systems of support for minor school discipline issues. Again, like, our goal and our responsibility is to educate students. He later says that things that used to be out-of-school suspensions are now in-school suspensions. Well, yes, if it's a minor disruptive behavior, then if we can keep the student in school and provide that student with instruction and counselor support and social work access and all of those things, none of that would happen largely outside of the school building. And so that, to me, is an evolution and progress in our education system that certainly didn't exist when I was going to school. If you disrupted class, you might be suspended out of school for a day, and then you're at home doing non-school things. And so I would just encourage the public to, if you are reading along with this, or if you have questions about positive behavior interventions, PBIS or MTSS, all these acronyms that we throw around, to ask your nearest educator or administrator, talk to your school professionals, and read about it outside of this book. Because again, while I agree that there are egregious failures at multiple levels as we've been reading this book, I cannot agree with the author in his indictment of multi-tiered systems of supports. So, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Others? All right, so next time we'll read chapters 11, no, chapters, it was 8, 9? No, 11 and 12. I can't even count, I'm sorry. 11 and 12. All right, next up is back to public comment. And again, a reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Public members who'd like to address the board?
I thought it was important to make sure that the board members and then all of the parents of Simon's students that are watching are aware that even though the administration is aware that there are families who aren't comfortable with young kids being introduced to gender theory, the district decided to organize a special event for the high school GSA club, which is the Gender Sexuality Acceptance Club, to read LGBT-themed content to the fourth graders at Simon's. Please stop me if that's not correct, but I believe it is. If it's not, that'd be wonderful to know. Not only did this show a blatant disregard for all the parents who do not agree with this ideology being pushed on their children, but also according to Michigan law, you're required to give parents notice of this type of event and give them the opportunity to opt their children out, which is the least you could have done for the portion of the community who doesn't agree with your political views, which means by allowing this to take place without giving parents proper notice, you likely violated state law. We already have record low enrollment, so what are you thinking? Are you trying to force conservative families out of the district? Both Dundee and Airport have opened school of choice for next year. And if you keep showing blatant disdain for conservative families, then I promise that your historic 13+ decline will continue with a vengeance. And we all know what that will mean, inevitable staffing cuts. I guarantee you those cuts won't be coming out of the administration's compensation packages. By the way, Milan parents and district employees might need to know that our superintendent is ranked the in the entire state. That's pretty significant for a superintendent who's overseen the sharpest decline in enrollment. As a matter of fact, enrollment has declined almost every year of his reign over the district. At least he's been consistent. It doesn't matter what your opinion is of me or conservative families in Milan. All of this should be concerning to all of us. We aren't asking you to comply with our political views, just leave yours out of the classroom. And if you continue to force families to comply with your political agenda, I promise you that they will continue to leave. And that will be a lose-lose situation for all of us.
Thank you for the comment. Are there others?
Janice Kiger. I would like the board to consider that some of the voices that have stood here and invoked freedom and rights and America and the Constitution are also some of the same voices that seem to show the least amount of respect for our constitutional republic. They continuously try to discredit and dismiss our election results, loudly asserting that only they know the will of the people. At a recent board meeting last month, a theory was voiced that our recent election did not show the will of the people, that instead it was implied that the people of this community lack the ability to understand who and what we're voting for. As a member of this community and someone who's proud and loves this community, I find that implication offensive. The people of this community are kind, intelligent, generous, always willing to lend a hand. We are not a bunch of ignorant yokels who need to be groomed by the loudest and most belligerent of voices. We do not need to be told what to think, how to feel, and who to vote for. And comments that seem to denigrate our choices and disparage our community because they don't like our election results just seems mean-spirited. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Are there others? Thank you for those comments this evening. Next up is student board representative comments. Ms. Powell.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's on. You just.
Okay, there we go. So, okay, there we go. Now I'm at the top. First, I wanted to say thank you, Mr. Sislo, for your surprise arrival at some of the soccer games.
Oh.
I speak for all the players when we say we missed hearing you sing the national anthem.
You're welcome.
I want to point out that in the high school, the chess club meets every Thursday right after school in Mr. Davis's room, which is up in A Hall. Prom is May 6th at the Big Red Barn, that way, from 7 to 11 p.m. Ladies, I highly recommend that you do not wear stilettos because the ground is probably going to be very wet and your feet are probably going to sink. So just keep in mind of that. Congratulations to the Milan girls soccer team for defeating Carleton Airport 8-0 on Monday. We played New Boston Huron tonight at 6 p.m. at this New Boston Stadium. Not sure how that went. I wasn't able to be there. We play Grosse Ile at 4:30 at Grosse Ile High School, and then Wednesday, May 3rd versus Jefferson High School at 4:30, and that is at home. There was a track meet today that sadly ended in a loss. My friend failed to tell me by how much, but it ended in a loss. There's a track meet May 2nd versus Flat Rock that starts at 4, that is at home. And Friday, May 5th, away at the baseball varsity at Manchester High School. I'm just quoting it and how it's written on the... And then girls tennis went against New Boston Huron tonight at 4 p.m. Still waiting to hear how that went. Saturday, April 29th versus the Adrian Quad, which is Adrian, Lincoln, and Walled Lake Central, at the Adrian College Crafts Complex at 9 a.m. Monday, May 1st against Grosse Ile High School at Grosse Ile at 4 p.m. Tuesday, May 2nd against St. Mary's Catholic Central at home at 4 p.m. Wow, a lot of events in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Tuesday, May 4th versus Onstead High School at home at 4 p.m. Boys golf had played against Tecumseh on Monday for the Tecumseh invite. There wasn't any information on how that went on the athletics page. Monday, May 1st, they go against Airport High School at home, which is the Pineview Golf Course at 3 p.m. On Wednesday, May 3rd, they go against Grosse Ile home at 3 p.m. Thursday, May 4th, against Flat Rock, which the location is currently unknown for that, but that is also at 3 p.m. Baseball. Ooh, there's a lot for this one. They win against Jefferson High School on Monday, taking the win of 19-11. They played Airport High School at Airport today at 4:30. Miss Freight joined. Went to go support both schools. Sadly, Milan did take a loss of 9-2. On Saturday, April 29th, the baseball team plays against Dundee Community High School at Dundee at 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. Monday, May 1st versus Huron High School away at Huron at 4:30. Wednesday, May 3rd versus Riverview at home at 4:30. And Friday, May 5th versus Whiteford High School, Whiteford Schools at 4 and 6 p.m. Softball played Jefferson High School, on Monday, taking a win of 2-1. They played Airport at home today, taking a win of 4-1. And Monday, May 4th, they play against Huron High School at home at 4:30. Wednesday, May 3rd, against Riverview at 4:30. Thursday, May 4th, they play against Pinckney High School at Pinckney at 4 and 5:30 p.m. And water polo played against Ann Arbor Huron High School yesterday. There was no update on how that went. Thursday, April 27th, against Grand Blanc High School at Grand Blanc at 7 p.m. Saturday, April 29th at Saline, which is their home field, I guess, versus Seaholm High School and
Yeah.
Groves High School. I have a feeling I'm really pronouncing that wrong.
You're doing great.
Oh. And that time is to be determined. Tuesday, May 2nd against Chelsea High School at Chelsea at 7 p.m. Thursday, May 4th versus Walled Lake Central at Walled Lake High School at 7 p.m. That was a lot, but I'm done.
Awesome, thank you. Update, and I hope your foot gets better soon.
Thank you.
Superintendent comments, Mr. Gearbaugh.
Yes, just a few things to share this evening. First, on Friday, April 14th, at Solo and State Solo and Ensemble, the Milan High School Chamber Choir earned excellent ratings for 3 different performances. The Chamber Choir Tenor and Bass Ensemble, the Chamber Choir Soprano and Alto Ensemble, and Rachel Taylor, a soloist. Excellent is the top rating possible at Solo and Ensemble. Congratulations to our talented singers and our wonderful choir director, Ms. The Elementary Art Show and Paddock Grand Event held on Thursday, April 20th was a huge success. Congratulations to all of the young artists. I have to say the glow-in-the-dark art and the other projects were incredibly impressive. We have some pretty amazing young artists here in the district. The Simons PTO Science Night, hosted on Thursday, April 20th, was wonderful. Students and parents alike enjoyed science-related stations. Many of the stations were hands-on and allowed the students to have fun while learning science. Parents and guardians who have not already completed the K-12 School Quality Survey will receive one final email from K-12 Insight this Friday morning. It closes midnight on Friday, April 8th. Milan Area Schools has partnered with a K-12 Insight, a company that conducts independent school district surveys. K-12 Insight has expert teams that build, promote, administer, and analyze school district surveys and get amazing results. Parents and guardians should have received an email from east@k12insight.com. The sender's name would be Milan Area Schools via K-12 Insight. We ask that you do not discard this email as spam. This survey is being conducted by a partner of Milan Area Schools, and we fully sanction this survey. If you are a parent or guardian of a Milan Area School student and did not receive an email regarding the survey, you can email east@k12insight.com to request that the survey be sent to your email address. We truly do want input that will help us lead our continuous improvement process here in the district, and truly we want your compliments, your concerns, and your recommendations. Please make sure to complete that survey if you have not already done so by this Friday at midnight. My school was put on lockdown Wednesday, April 19th due to a threatening message written on a bathroom wall. I want everyone to understand that I share in your frustration with these incidents. The district takes these matters very seriously. We vigorously investigate them and issue discipline accordingly. Students involved in past incidents have received discipline up to include expulsion from the district as well as criminal charges. We have potential consequences with students and have asked parents to speak to their students about the consequences for making threats against a school. We debrief after every incident, both internally in the district and with the Milan Police Department. We are doing our part in taking steps to squelch these incidents, but in the end, we cannot completely control the actions of our students. We need students to control their own actions, and we need families to help their students understand the seriousness of making threats against a school. This is a societal problem, and it will take a society working together to help end this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Superintendent comments, Mr. McMahon.
Yes, thank you. I have a few comments tonight. I just want to share with you that we are in the 3rd week of state testing right now. We've wrapped up the SAT, PSAT suite, working through the M-STEP now at this point. The state did open up the window for M-STEP 3rd grade reading to be done a little bit earlier than in the past. Well, since the 3rd grade reading law passed, they opened it up. So we were able to attack that test first, and we can actually get preliminary results back. So at this point, we actually know that we have 8 students that fell below the cut line of 1252 on their reading test. So we're going to be working through the protocols that MDE recommends, contacting the families and sharing the steps for the good cause exemption process. So we'll be doing that as soon as we can. We have to wait for the preliminary results to be finalized. I also want to share with you just data, we've updated our at-risk and free and reduced lunch numbers. We have to submit them in our MSDS fall count report, and then we update them again for a second time here in the winter. They just got finalized recently. The current rates are district-wide. We're at 83% at risk. Recipients of the free reduced lunch program. To be identified as at risk, there's a number of categories. You have to use one of them. It's economically disadvantaged, victim of abuse, behind grade level, not proficiency on state level assessments, homelessness, EL. There's a number of categories. You have to meet at least one of them to be considered at risk. These numbers tend to jump a little bit in the winter because one of those categories is chronic absenteeism, and if a student could possibly tardies accumulated into absences or generally absences that result in greater than 10% of their time in school, then they are marked on that list as well. And then also the behind grade level on local. So that number ticks up a little bit in the winter, but it's important to know that we're at 83% at risk for our students. I want to update you on the 11T before and after school tutoring process. That's now essentially in its third week. We started after spring break in most of the buildings. Paddock, who has had 100% attendance in 2 weeks for this, which is considerable, they've been able to serve just under 40 students, and the middle school's been working with about 30. The attendance at the high school is waning a little bit, and we're going to continue through the end of the year. We really want to provide tutoring time. We're going to continue here, and then we'll analyze this data in the summer, because we want to do it again next year, but we might adjust the numbers and the amount of resources we provide towards the levels based on the attendance. And I also want to share with you a grant update, the last update I have, and that's that our Section 98C grant funds, that was the mitigating learning loss funds. It was $100,777. We put that towards the math intervention programs at the elementary schools. That's been approved. We submitted and got approved. So that, if you remember in October, I think it was like the end of October 27th maybe, I presented to the board about what we're going to do. We've already done the programming. We were just getting approval to spend the money on that program already. So it's been approved. The program's been in place. So it's now official. That's all I have.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. McGann. Other comments?
Mr. Sislo?
Yeah, Ms. Rosenleiter.
So first I want to start, I forgot how busy spring sports season is. Like,
Oh, it's horrible.
like busier than, I just forgot being away from it for so long. Also, thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh, for explaining the career tech ed and the growth that the county's looking to do. I think that's hugely important for all of our students. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of attending the AP research presentations done by 5 of our high school students. I was in awe. It was quite remarkable, the work and the study put into topics of interest to them, and they were very vast. Some with really hard data, hard science, and one that was on soft science, which is much more difficult to collect data on. And you could tell the time and effort that was put in, not just by Mr. Baden, but by each and every one of those students. It was brilliant. I can tell you, I work in postmasters with the International Review Board. We had high school students doing International Review Board, which they have to work with when you're talking about human subject studies. So I want to just congratulate Ms. Claire Baker, presenting on the effect of highly publicized parental involvement in the childhood obesity epidemic. Mr. Matthew Bowman presented on wildlife vehicle collisions and improving the relationship between drivers and the environment. Ms. Allison Held presented on the Universal Code of Healthcare Services and evaluation of care providers' roles. Ms. Ellie Racet presented on the ethics of fast fashion. I learned an awful lot on that one. What fast fashion was, on ethics of fast fashion and the pressure it puts on parents. And Mr. Alden Beasley presented on, does Xenoblade Chronicles affirm the artistic integrity and thematic depth of video game narrative, and talked about looking at that in comparison to text literature and movies and such. So again, just thank you to Mr. Baden for the invitation, and to all of the students. See what they do next. That's all I have.
Thanks, Ms. Rosenleiter.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Frake.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know, I substituted in Milan 12 years, and then once I was on the board, I've now been at airport schools for 5. So I know a lot of our students, and now that I have both, I tend to go to as many of the games as I can if they're here, home, or there. I'm an equal opportunity cheerer, so I bring red and black pom-poms and my blue and gold and do the best that I possibly can. Spring is not only busy, but boy, that weather can be ferocious. You saved yourself something, Mr. Sislo, on Monday's game, because it was here at Milan, the girls played soccer. I sat and got sleeted in the face as we cheered for both. Milan took the win on that. It was a good game. Went to the track meet at airport in Milan again. To watch our runners. The last group of kids that I would have subbed and known very well through Milan enough seniors. So it's really neat to see them in their talents and cheer for them. And then tonight I was able to go to the baseball game and watch it, and that is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to being able to go to softball. I would like to also give Mr. Hull, our athletic director, kudos for all of his Facebook posts so that he keeps us up to date on scores and allows us to continue to celebrate all of our big reds. Sislo, Mrs. Rosenleacher, and myself all did the Big Red Board Chat, which is always nice to have a way to communicate in a less formal manner with our community. We had a few people there. We also had a student there, which was really nice to be able to talk and address some of her concerns. I'm really excited that the board itself is continuing to do that with our quarterly, and I appreciate being able to participate. I would also like to thank our parental groups, the PTOs that we have, and our sunshine groups for the support they continue to do through, for all of our staff at each one of the buildings. There's some couple of posts that have been on there that's nice to be able to participate and do some things. To be able to acknowledge our staff, and when I say staff, I mean our parapros, our janitors in general. Those groups focus on the building overall, so it's really nice to be able to help them and see what they're doing. And if I'm right, happy early birthday for next Monday. Wow. Thank you very much. I'm out, Mr. Sislo.
Thank you. Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Murray.
Do we have time?
Yeah,
in
yeah.
keeping
Yep,
with,
we
okay,
do. Yep. I'll let you guys know.
Okay, I will be as brief as possible. First, I want to give an early congratulations to our Milan High School Productions team, who is student and putting on the ASAP's Oh So Slightly Updated Fables. Quick plug, this Sunday at 2 o'clock right here in the MHS auditorium. And break a leg to all students participating. And congratulations, that production was made possible in part by a grant from GMACF, the Greater Milan Area Community Fund. So I just want to congratulate MHS Productions for being a grant recipient. That's excellent, and keep up the great work. I look forward to seeing you all on Sunday. And then my only other comment tonight is that the existence and inherent value of LGBTQ plus families and students is not up for debate in our district. Representation matters, and the effort to scrub our classrooms, libraries, and curriculum of the existence of LGBTQ plus people is, in my opinion, reprehensible and is not in keeping with the mission of this district to create a caring and school community. Books and curriculum that acknowledge the existence of and contributions of LGBTQ individuals is not the same thing as sexual health education, and I have full faith in all of our staff at Simons in their ability to appropriately select material that is appropriate for our children, for our curriculum, and that celebrates LGBTQ plus individuals in our community. So that, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Mr. Sislo, I got a different friend that actually knows the score of things.
Oh.
She told me that at the track meet today, the girls lost she believes it was 76 to 53, and the boys was 66 to 62.
Pretty close.
Mr. Farrell.
First, earlier this evening, I believe one of the community members spoke about test scores. So test scores is just one measure of student performance and achievement. I guess I want to say loud and clear that I'm proud of our teachers and I'm proud of our students. They should be celebrated for their efforts during extraordinary and challenging times. With respect to declining enrollment. I said last meeting, I'll say it again, that declining enrollment is associated with known declining birth rates in Michigan and demographic shifts. The district's budget is aligned with current enrollment numbers. Again, with regard to the budget, I will be meeting with Krista Hendricks on May 17th to discuss anticipated FY23 budget adjustments and to also preliminarily discuss the FY24 budget. I want to also share with the community that it is my understanding that the use of ESSER funds is coming to an end and may not be available for use after this fiscal year. As a result, overstaffing may be needed. Overall staffing may need to be reduced, including potential layoffs, and class sizes may be larger than what the ESSER funds had allowed previously. So earlier, we heard a community member talk about political views, agendas, other buzzwords were directed at us in the past, including gaslighting, deflecting, misrepresenting, if we told the truth, transparency. So I want to be very clear that I'm doing none of those things. Be sure that everyone knows now that there is a potential for some changes because ESSER funds are going away. The other thing that I wanted to mention too, with regard to all the buzzwords, is when some of us simply choose, when we don't agree with this community member, this person is not interested in conversation. This person resorts to loudly use these buzzwords to try and secure a reaction. And from my perspective, it's nonsense. With regard to the lockdown at the high school, I want to thank our district administrative for their professionalism and their promptness in reacting to the recent threat to parents and families. Thank you also to our principals, teachers, building secretaries, social workers, guidance counselors, librarians, food service workers, coaches, and custodians for doing their part every single day at keeping our children safe. Most of these people are also parents and have children or grandchildren in the district. Keeping our kids safe is a team effort, and I want you to know that I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow.
Do you have time for me?
Absolutely.
First, I also want to congratulate the choir on their ensemble performances. I can't sing at all, so when I hear people who are very good at it, I'm always amazed. It's incredible to me the amount of talent that we have in this district. And if I'm not wrong, I think that Miss Taylor is actually going to college and is using those talents in college as part of her degree. So they not only are very talented, but in way more ways than we ever did when I was in school. Our students are using those talents and they're going on and they're advancing, going on and getting more education and using those talents in those educational settings as well. So they are living their dreams, and I'm just very proud of them because that's way riskier, way scarier than being a lawyer. So kudos to all of them. I also want to congratulate the softball and baseball teams on their performances this week. They are all on a roll, those two teams, and so I'm very excited to see what happens with the rest of the season. I also want to say that I approved, or I voted in favor of the program that was presented on tonight, because there would be no cost or very little cost to the district, and those funds were allocated to the county. So I still have some concerns about how the program will be run. That money is not our money, it's county money that has already been allocated, and I didn't want our students to miss out on an opportunity that may be available to other Washtenaw County students. So there's that. And I'm very troubled that there's apparently a belief that threats of rape and murder are not seen as problematic.
and something that people should just get over, or that they're whining about when they receive them. I want to remind everyone that these threats were so severe that one board member over them. These were not petty threats. They were there. We received them. I also want to say that I did not lie about contacting the police. I did. The threats I personally received, I reported to the police department. If you don't believe me, I assume there's a police report you can get, and if you don't believe the police report, you can contact my neighbors who saw the police department out in front of my house when they were taking down all the information and the screenshots that I took for them. I also encouraged fellow board members to report threats that they received, and I was asked by Mr. Sislo to provide any threats I received so that he could provide them to the police department. So that is not a lie. I wouldn't lie about that. I wouldn't lie anyways, but I wouldn't lie about that. I also thought it was a little interesting that, and maybe I misunderstood the comment, that while we were accused, or I was accused of lying, I think I'm the one that mentioned the police, accused of lying about reporting threats to the police department, there was another comment that the threats weren't investigated because they weren't credible. So I don't know how a threat can't be investigated if it's never reported to the police. I also want to reiterate Ms. Murray's comments that all of our students, including our LGBTQ plus students, are allowed to simply exist. They are, and they are entitled to an education, and they are entitled to live their lives just like everyone else. And we are a welcoming community. We will acknowledge every student for who they are, even if that doesn't comply with some other community members' belief on what should be allowed in the community. As to Mr. Gearbaugh's pay, just shouting out, maybe rank, whatever the number was in the state, fails to take into account the fact that Mr. Gearbaugh, and I haven't looked this number up, but Mr. Gearbaugh has to be one of the longest serving superintendents in the state. If you take out his time as a teacher here, he has been here for decades. And that factors into someone's pay. But I will also encourage everyone who get it and see that they should compare Mr. Gearbaugh's contract to the contracts of other superintendents. Because I'm telling you now that if we had to go on a search for a superintendent, we would not find one at the pay rate we have now with the few benefits that he receives. It doesn't happen. Other superintendents get much larger benefit packages than Mr. Gearbaugh has. And I say these things not only to counter what I think is some or at least incomplete information that has been thrown out there, but I say these things as a board member who has routinely pushed back on Mr. Gearbaugh on our administrative costs. I voted against hiring new administrators, and I'm always asking, and you can go check the tapes, I am always pushing because we do have high administrative costs and asking why. So take everything I've said about his contract and take it with the grain of salt that I've just given you, that while I support his contract, and it's, you know, whatever the number is in the state, it's completely fair, and that we need to watch what our administrative costs are. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Heike.
I was just going to say that when you made the comment about Miss Taylor, it is true.
She is, right?
Miss Coffey accidentally sent me an email with a picture of something Miss Taylor wrote for her, like, part of her college music recommendation.
She was accepted into, like, Eastern's, like, musical, like, therapy program or something. Like,
yeah,
she's
it was
going
just,
to,
but it was a picture of, like, describing how much she loved doing music theory and how excited she was to be a part of it and have that be her career. And then Miss Coffey immediately emailed back 5 minutes later saying, "I'm sorry, that was meant for the music teacher."
Ms. Gutierrez.
Yeah, Mr. Sislo,
Yes,
thank you.
sure.
I'd like to first and foremost thank the board and Mr. Gearbaugh and Ms. for your warm and friendly and incredibly helpful welcome to the board. I'm really honored for the opportunity to serve this community, and I look forward to working with each of you. I'd secondly like to reiterate and echo and amplify and support the comments that Mrs. Hike and Ms. Murray made about our diversity of students and families and educators in this district, and would add that they are not only entitled to thrive, or to be, but to thrive in this district. And we also have an obligation as we raise students to enter a diverse world to help our students understand and accept and live and work with individuals of all differences. And I too trust our educators to do that in a way that is kind and compassionate and appropriate. And I just want to reiterate personal support for that. The other thing I'd like to highlight is something that Mr. Gearbaugh mentioned. This past week we had 2 wonderful events at our elementary schools, Science Night at Simons and the Grand Event at Paddock. I had the privilege to participate as a mom in Simon's Science Night, and I actually ran the wind energy station, and it was really fun. It was super fun to see the kids getting excited about science. As a scientist myself, I was totally geeking out on them making hypotheses and doing experiments and thinking about what they do when their hypothesis was proven wrong. And it was just so fun, energetic to get to see them get excited about science. And so thank you to the Simons PTO for hosting this wonderful event, and to all the families that came out. And then the other event I was unable to attend because unfortunately they were scheduled actually on the same evening, but photos and videos, the grand event in the elementary art fair at the Paddock Elementary was a huge success. Congratulations to all of our artists at Paddock and Simons, and all the staff and families who helped coordinate the event. And especially, I'd like to give kudos to Miss Wendy Unger. She is a true force, and I'm so grateful for her passion for teaching and for art and for the combination of the two, and for her vision to create this beautiful art display that was interactive and multi-tiered and included contributions from our artists all the way through 5th grade. It was really quite the treasure to see, in addition to the mural that they have put together at Paddock. And so I'm extremely grateful for her passion, as well as the passion of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. I just want to echo what Ms. Freight said about the Big Red Board Chat. We did have one last Wednesday at Paddock. There's about 10 people that attended. I want to thank those community members that came out. It was a healthy dialogue between the board members and the community. And again, we are committed as a board to continuing those Big Red Board Chats on a quarterly basis. We did receive some constructive feedback at that meeting, which we were able to pass on, and some of it was implemented. So those are valuable conversations that we have with with our stakeholders. So when advertising, please attend. It's great to hear from everybody. We know we're not perfect, but we strive to continuously improve. So, are there any other board comments? All right, with that, motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 8(1)B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, and upon the request of the student's parent and guardian, for the purpose of conducting a hearing to consider the discipline of a student whose identity is known to the board as student 2022-2023-11.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Farrell.
So moved and supported to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 8(1)B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Just so everybody knows, the only order of business that we will do upon return is to vote on that student disciplinary resolution and then to adjourn. So you are welcome to stick around, but that will be the only item of business after we return from closed session. Is there any other discussion or? All right, it's been moved and supported to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 8(1)B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, and upon request of the student's parent or guardian, for the purpose of conducting a hearing to consider discipline of student of the board as student 2022-2023. Ms. Heike.
Heike, yes. Murray?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
We are entering into closed session at 8:57. p.m. switch.
Oh, there we go.
All right, we've returned to open session at 9:52 PM. I will offer the following resolution. A regular board meeting of the Board of Education was held at Milan High School at 200 Big Red Drive, Milan, Michigan, within the boundaries of the district on the 26th day of April 2023 at 7 o'clock in the PM. Whereas the administration has recommended that student whose identity is known to the board as student 2022-2023-11 be expelled for persistent disobedience in violation of board policy in the Milan Middle School Code of Conduct. School administrators notified student parent guardian of the specific charges underlying the disciplinary recommendation, as well as the date, time, and place of disciplinary hearing. Pursuant to the request of the student parent guardian as authorized by the Michigan Open Meetings Act of 81B, MCL 15268-1B, the disciplinary hearing was conducted in a closed session meeting of the board. The hearing afforded the student and the student's representatives an opportunity to respond to the charge and present pertinent evidence to the for the board's consideration. The board carefully considered all the evidence produced in the student disciplinary hearing. Now therefore be resolved, the preponderance of the evidence establishes that during the 2022-2023 school year, the student has demonstrated persistent disobedience in violation of policy 5610 Code of Conduct. Based on careful consideration of all the following factors, the board determines that expulsion is warranted. The student's age, the student's disciplinary history, whether the student has a disability, the seriousness of the behavior, whether the behavior poses a safety risk, whether restorative practices are a better option, whether lesser interventions would address the behavior. Because the lesser intervention would not address the behavior, a student is expelled through the end of 2022-2023 school year. During the time of the expulsion, the student may not be on school grounds or attend any functions at the district without prior written approval from an appropriate administrator. The student may petition the board for reinstatement no sooner than 30 days before the beginning of the 2023-2024 school year. If the student does not satisfy reinstatement requirements, the student's expulsion may be extended, or student's reinstatement may be denied or made with conditions. Consistent with the revised school code sections 11A and board policy 5610, the board finds that the interests of the districts are served by this resolution. Consistent with the board's action taken this date, administrators shall promptly determine whether the student is entitled to educational services under state and federal law. Administrators are directed and authorized to implement all terms of this resolution and are delegated all necessary authority to do so. All resolution and parts of resolutions, insofar as they conflict with provisions of this resolution, resolution B, the same, are hereby rescinded. I need a motion